Today I'm coming to you to teach you about breathing. And most people are like, I'm breathing. What do you mean? Teach me about breathing. So there are two different ways that we can breathe. When we are in a survival state, meaning when we are in a situation where there's a perceived threat or danger. For example, like if we're being chased by a bear, or if we're driving in dangerous rainy conditions. That is a perceived threat, and our body goes into a state of survival, which is going to produce a certain kind of breathing. Another way that our body will go into this survival type of breathing is not necessarily if we are in a literal physical threat, but if we're in a perceived threat within us. And what I mean by that is when we are thinking thoughts, and those thoughts produce an emotional response, a chemical response of stress and survival hormones inside of us that are linked to fear. Worry is fear. Worry is anticipating the future. So if we are nervous or worried or feeling fearful about what is happening around us or what is going to become in the future or something that happened in the past, those thoughts produce chemical reactions and feelings that create a perceived threat or an environment within us where we do not feel safe. And so when we are in a survival state of being, our body shifts into what is called the sympathetic nervous system, which is also known as a fight, flight, or freeze state or fawning state. And basically what happens is that our breath becomes very shallow, meaning that we're using the accessory lungs up here and our accessory muscles up here, and our lungs are what take in oxygen, and our lungs reach down and to the base of our lungs touches our diaphragm, basically. So in other words, when we are using these accessory muscles to shallow breathe, when we are in the state of survival, our breath may look something like this. See how my hands are moving up? Okay, so basically what's happening is that we have these stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, that are pumping and flowing through our body, keeping us in a survival state, and our blood is being shunted to the organs that need to be supported in order for us to potentially run from a bear or survive whatever threat we are enduring, whether it's inwardly produced by our thoughts and our emotions, or whether it's some external event like being chased by a bear or driving on the side of a mountain. I don't know, that would stress me out. So that's going to cause our body to shunt our blood away from our digestion, away from our immune system. Our blood and the energy in our body is going to be shunted to our heart and our lungs because we're going to need, and our muscles, because we're going to need to run from this perceived threat or cower or hide or freeze. Okay. And so what happens is, I'm getting off a track. If you're someone who suffers from a poor digestion or a weak immune system, more likely than not, it's because you're living in a state of survival and your body doesn't feel that it's important to put your energy towards those systems in your body because it is helping you survive life. So my point of this video is I want to share with you a tip that's going to help you shift from this shallow state of breathing, which most of us live. Most people that I've worked with, this is the way that they breathe. Okay, and so I want to shift you and teach you how to breathe what can be called diaphragmatic breathing. And it's where we shunt and shift intentionally and learn how to breathe using all of our lungs. Because actually, the gas exchange from oxygen and carbon dioxide actually happens at the base of our lungs in the alveoli. So we want to be in a practice of breathing for life, for sustaining life, so that our body can be optimally functioning through proper gas exchange, and for our body to feel safe within itself, so that our immune system and our digestive system can get the proper and appropriate blood flow, etc. So let me show you how we're going to do this. What you do is basically we want to send the oxygen as we breathe it through our nose. We're going to send the oxygen not just here, but we want to send the oxygen all the way down here to the base. And what I like to say is pretend that you have a balloon, a deflated balloon down here. And you can even put your hands at the base of your lungs, underneath your lungs where your diaphragm is. And as you breathe in, and this takes practice, and it's not going to feel good the first time that you do it because it is so foreign. But as you breathe in, you're going to breathe in through your nose, and you're going to imagine sending the air down here. And as you do that, when you do that properly, as you breathe in, you are imagining that you're breathing your air into that deflated balloon, and now it's inflating. Okay, so your hands, when you're doing it correctly, will expand. And then as you breathe out, you're deflating that balloon, and your hands will contract inward. So let me demonstrate that to you. I'm going to breathe in through my nose. And then I'm going to breathe out through my mouth. And as you could see my hands moving inward and outward. If you are a singer, this is the way that people who sing are trained. They have to bring their sound from down here, not just project it from their throat. Okay, so if you'd like, we could do that together. So just go ahead and place your hands here, and then when you breathe in, imagine sending the air to the balloon so that it inflates. And then when you exhale, I'd like for you to breathe out through your mouth and pretend you have a straw in your mouth, and allow that air to project out through the straw. And what this accomplishes is that it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is referred to as rest and digest. And think about the word rest. In order for us to accomplish rest, we have to be present, and we have to be in a place where we trust the current circumstances and situations that we're in. Many have trouble sleeping at night because they do not have an internal trust inside of them. The anxiety keeps us up, and we have to look at our phone until we fall asleep to distract our mind, because we haven't learned how to actually rest and trust our environment, even when we're in a home and we are safe. Okay, so last little thing before we practice is you will know if this is working for you. A telltale sign is that when you do it and your body shifts from that fight or flight to the parasympathetic nervous system, you will yawn. Your body will literally like exhale. It's not that you're exhaling, but your body experiences, it's safe. We're finally safe. And last little thing is, if you think about it, when you watch a baby sleep or when you watch someone sleep, they're not shallow breathing. They're not going, well, maybe someone with chronic disease and several comorbidities, sick people do sleep like that. But a baby, a healthy baby or a healthy adult is going to because they're finally at rest. They're breathing in for life and letting out for life. And that is the goal, that we can train our body to embody trust and presence in everyday life. And this, my friend, is the beginning of a road that creates a completely different reality for you. Because when you can cultivate an experience of peace inside of you, then you learn how to access that peace in high stressful situations, and you get access to a response to life from a centered and grounded place rather than from a place of panic or fear, which is our default settings, because we're human and we need that survival response to actually survive in life. However, that survival response has become extremely exacerbated because we don't live in caves anymore, and we're not having to like fend for ourselves in the jungle. We actually live in homes that are supposed to be safe unless they're full of mold, which most of them are, which actually contributes to this fight or flight scenario. I digress. We'll save that for another video. But my point is that even when we are safe, our default setting is that we're not safe. And so that is why I'm offering you this powerful practice and this information, because when we know better, we can do better, right? We can be better. That is the key. We are all addicted to doing, and the whole point of this practice is to learn how to be safe, to be at peace. Okay, so let's practice a few more times. All right, so if you'd like, you can put one hand on your chest or one hand on your belly or both hands on your belly. And we're going to imagine the balloon that's deflated down here by my hands, by your hands, and we're just going to breathe in slowly and deeply. And as that air is going down through towards our hands, we're going to imagine that balloon inflating on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in nice and slow. And exhale it through your mouth like a straw. Imagine the balloon deflating. Good. Let's try that again. Breathe in through your nose. Hold it for 3 seconds if you can, and let it deflate. I invite you to try this a few more times and practice daily. Especially, it can be helpful when you're laying in bed at night to abandon your phone, allow it to be away from you, and just practice this presence, practice this peace. I did this for years with my boys, well, my young men when they were boys, and it would be time for bed and I'd be tucking them in and they were kind of like wound up, and we just practiced breathing. And I knew that it was working because it never failed. They would yawn. And then I knew, okay, we're on our way. We're on our way to them falling asleep. Okay, I hope this blesses you. Let me know in the comments how it works for you. I'm excited to hear.